Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy. We're on the 6 p.m. start of the week session for February 21st, 2021 in the Forex trading room. We're going to be going through our usual agenda, a look at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter, fundamental announcements scheduled for this week, a look at the major pairs on the daily charts, any setups we see in progress, and a few words in conclusion. Starting with the ledgers, the long-term ledger had an increase of over 10%, mainly due to the pound JPY trade that did take us out on one of its most recent retraces with over $500 of profit. On a $5,000 account, that is quite a bit more than 10%, and we still got a bunch of trades open that are either carrying profit or moving in the right direction. I think our one negative is pound Aussie, which did a very spectacular retrace against us on Friday. Didn't come close to taking us out, but we are negative by about 130 pips as the week ended. I see that as actually a buying opportunity if you're not in the pound Aussie right now. The pound Aussie has found support. Doesn't seem to be going any lower than the bottom of the chart, even though it is a bumpy ride. And the potential for gain outweighs every other pound pair on the charts right now. So if you're not in that trade, I would suggest you take a look at it. It's been one of the stragglers that has not recovered as all the other pound pairs have. So as I said, the opportunities there are stunning if it does play out. So long-term ledger, very good results for the week. And with all the trades we have open, probably even better results to come. The intermediate term ledger was pretty flat. I think we got taken out of a couple of trades and they pretty much balanced each other out. I think the Euro New Zealand was the culprit there, but we pretty much ended up at break even between the two entries into that same pair. And as I said, no significant change. On the short-term ledger, we did take a hit on the pound Aussie again on that retrace towards the end of the week. So we took about 150 pips of damage there. And we still have one trade open, which was slightly negative, but also showing upward pressure in our direction. So slight blip there. The other accounts either at very nice profit or flat. Notes and opportunities for improvement. As mentioned, strong gains on the long-term account, a small drawdown on the short-term. We continue to see a bullish outlook on the pound from the market. The dollar is still dropping, and the yen is uncharacteristically and inexplicably weak, except against the dollar, where it has a recovery in the last week or so. Relative strength meter, I actually couldn't pull up this chart today. The website where I get this information was not cooperating. That said, I don't think there's been much change from the week before. This is a weekly chart, so I think we're pretty much as we were, showing the major loser being the dollar, followed by the yen. The Kiwi is shown as a loser here. I don't think that applies for last week. The Kiwi did a bit of a recovery as well. All else is probably the same. I'm still searching out for a reliable source for this data. I'm going to have to probably build something myself and put it up on our website. Fundamental announcements scheduled for the week. It's a pretty light calendar. We have the ILO unemployment rate out of the UK. That is Monday night into Tuesday morning at 2 a.m. We will be trading that one live. And then also on Tuesday at 8 p.m., we have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand's interest rate decision. That will also be live traded. So our evening session on Tuesday will be slightly earlier than usual to accommodate for that. We've got a bunch of other high impact announcements, mainly GDP and price indexes and durable goods and this and that, but I really don't trade these. That doesn't mean they can't or shouldn't be traded. I just am very selective as to which announcements I will live trade. So that's the full calendar. I strongly urge everybody to always look at this calendar and make your own decisions as to what you think should be traded. With that, we move on to the charts. Oil continues making higher highs. It actually broke above $60 a barrel very briefly, I think, on Thursday, and ended the week almost, but not quite at $60. I think $59 and change, which is where it is opening today. So we continue to see a nice recovery out of oil. And if this trend continues, and that's what trends normally do until they don't, then we should continue to see higher oil prices, a good recovery at this point. With that, we move into the currencies. The euro dollar, mostly flat week. It dropped towards the beginning of the week, testing support, and then Thursday into Friday, it staged a recovery. It rejoined the trend line. I do expect to continue seeing dollar weakness against all the other currencies, so very likely this one at some point headed again for a test of the top. The pound dollar, unlike the euro dollar, the pound dollar just kept going up and up, mainly Thursday into Friday. It was flat for the beginning of the week, didn't really retrace much, and then it just went ballistic and gave us a higher high. If we're going to look for targets, we can't see them on the daily chart. We're going to have to zoom out to the weekly. I'm not going to do that right now, but you guys have seen me do this on the daily sessions. We're looking at some pretty nice targets on the pound dollar. USD/JPY, as mentioned, the yen not having a good week or even a good month, but against the dollar, it did manage to recover somewhat. It was still a bullish week. It ended up higher than where it started, so not out of the woods yet. But Wednesday into Friday, we saw a nice recovery from the yen. We are trading the USD/JPY on at least one account, I think the long term, and we've caught a nice bit of a ride on those 3 days. That is one of our newer trades on the long-term account. USD Canadian did a very nice test of the bottom and actually ended below support on Friday. We'll have to see what this new week brings us, but this is a very, very nice bearish chart. We are trading the USD CAD down as well. USD Swiss, another straggler, so it actually went contrarian. This is one of the few pairs where the dollar held its own, and the Swiss did end up in a poorer position at the end of the week than where it had started. This also you should see as an opportunity for profit there, as I don't foresee any dollar strength in the longer term. So eventually, if nothing changes, this chart should do a bottom test as well. And that's quite a nice amount of pips there to be had. I think this is another pair we are actively trading right now. Aussie dollar broke the top finally. It had the top for more than a month, probably a couple of months, and finally on Friday broke out. Of course, this is an unconfirmed break. We still need to see a candle or two continuing above that new support line at the very top, but the fact that it finally broke out is very telling. Again, dollar weakness is the flavor of the week and of the month and probably of the year. Kiwi dollar almost but not quite did what the Aussie did. So it tested the top, didn't quite manage to break, but I've been saying this for a while. That break is coming again unless something changes. Aussie Canadian also broke the top, but again, unconfirmed. We want to see a few more candles on the other side of that new support line. So we'll see what the new week gives us. The Canadian is very susceptible to oil prices, and the fact that oil is going up should not see the Canadian weakening too much. But again, you never know. The Aussie is having a really, really good run after spending years at the bottom. Last year into this year, the Australian has recovered very nicely. And while I think it may be a little bit overextended, that's just my opinion. What really matters is what the market thinks. And if the market keeps buying it and pushing it up, well, that's where it'll end up going. Euro Swiss also breaking the top of the sideways channel on Friday, but ending up pretty much at the support resistance line. So we'll have to see if we get an opportunity to trade it out into the breakout above, or if it's going to bounce and give us a test of one of those trend lines that are crossing there in the middle of the channel, or perhaps even the bottom of the channel. There's not a whole lot of pips there, which is why we have been ignoring this chart for a while, but that may change when they're at one of these extreme points. That's when my ears start to perk up, and we'll see if it gives us something to latch onto. Euro pound breaking the bottom, then tested from the other side on Friday, and the test was not good. Well, in the test, it actually, I should say, the test did hold, so it did end up at the very bottom of the chart. Now we're going to have to see what happens next, especially in the next 24 hours, to see if we're going to get a bounce that we can trade up, or if this is going to be a confirmed breakout. It's almost but not quite confirmed right now, simply because Friday's results are really not the yardstick we should use to measure this. Fridays tend to be contrarian. So again, take a look at the euro pound as the week kicks off to give you an idea of what it might be doing. EURJPY broke the top during the week, bounced off of it, and now seems to be trying to go up. This is a confirmed break, since it not only continued going up, then slid back and tested support, and support held. The test was good, so now it is on its way up. Of course, that means very little. It could always pop back down, but at this point, we are bullish on the EURJPY. Euro Canadian at the bottom of its sideways channel, and I do expect to see it start moving up and do a test of resistance, maybe even the top of the channel. And we are trading it in that direction on the short-term account, currently carrying a small loss. Of course, again, pay very close attention to what it does as the week kicks off, to see whether we're going to have a good write-up, or indeed if we're going to see a break. I wouldn't call this a confirmed break, despite the fact that we have 3 candles below the support. They just haven't moved too far away, and we still have a previous low that is slightly lower than where it is right now. Pound JPY, this is the breakout of all breakouts, and we a chunk of profit last week around the middle of the week. I did not re-enter this trade. I'm waiting to, I think it's overextended for one, so there might be a bit of a test in the future of support, and I don't want to be caught in the middle of that. But if it does keep going up, we will be re-entering this trade in the same direction. It's definitely a confirmed breakout of the wedge, of the horizontal resistance, of everything you care to look at. This is confirmed, but again, a little bit too much, too fast. So be very cautious if trading the pound JPY. Aussie JPY also breaking out at the top finally on Friday, and of course, unconfirmed. We want to see either a test of that support or a continuation. I want to see a few more candles before I consider this a confirmed breakout. Euro New Zealand, and this was one of our successful trades that we exited last week on the intermediate at any rate. We did see it break the bottom, and this is another one where I want to see what it does as the week kicks off. I do think, though, this is another one that's moved far, far away from that trend line you see dropping there. I think we're going to see a test of resistance before it continues going down. Even if it does continue going down, I think this was a bit of an extreme move, partly to blame on Fridays when extreme moves tend to happen in a very contrarian fashion, but I think a little bit too much, too fast, and this may provide a good opportunity to trade it back up for 100, a couple of 100 pips perhaps, maybe even more if it goes all the way to the trend line. I'm still extremely bearish on this chart. I'm convinced it's going to continue going down, but remember, the market moves in zigzags. It doesn't move in a straight line. So the likelihood of it going up to test resistance is pretty high right now. So take that into account if you want to trade this. Pound broke out on Thursday, finally, from the top of the sideways channel, but couldn't maintain it. And on Friday, it slipped back down below. So another one where we want to see what it does as the week kicks off. We took profit a week or two back on this trade. quite a nice profit if I recall. And I wouldn't mind jumping back into it, but I want to see a little bit of clarity, a little bit of direction and confirmation before we jump back in. Pound Swiss, yet another of these breakouts, and we took profit on this one as well a few weeks back, maybe a couple of weeks. And as I've mentioned in most of my daily sessions, I am trading this one. I still have the trade open on one of my personal accounts, and it's just carrying hundreds of pips at this point. I think this one may be a bit overextended as well, but on that account, I have a much different and crazier risk profile, I guess I should call it. So I'm going to stick to that trade and see where it takes me. For now, we've got a nice little bit of a breakout, and some of these trends do move in the same direction for months at a time. So I'm not in any rush to close this down. If you are considering entering this trade, you are entering it rather late in the game. So I would suggest you monitor this pair for a day or two, see what it plans on doing, or if you're trading more longer term and you're willing to use a very wide stop, and we're talking at least 350, maybe 500 pips worth of a stop loss, then by all means jump in. I am convinced this one will continue to go up, but it may zig and zag before it does that. And last but not least, the pound Aussie. I mentioned it a couple of times. It was moving very nicely up, and then on Friday, it just collapsed. No good reason for that other than, well, that's what the market did, but Fridays do tend to be contrarian. It went back down to its previous low, or its most recent low, I should say. It is at the top of the Ichimoku cloud, so it should be a good area to find support. And as mentioned earlier, I am convinced that this is giving you a very good buying opportunity if you're not already in this trade. So take that into consideration. Probably wait for a day or so for it to reestablish itself, or better yet, put in a pending order to take you in maybe 50, 75 pips above where it is right now and see how far you can ride this one up. It is a very bouncy chart, so be careful how you trade it, but the potential for profit, as mentioned at the very beginning of the call, is humongous. It may go up all the way to the 197, which is about 2,000 pips above where it is right now. 2,000 pips, even trading at a mini lot, is $2,000. So again, the potential here for profit is just huge. That's it for the chart. It's not a whole lot of change from last week. The pound remains extremely bullish in sentiment, which should be taken as cautionary. I have not changed that belief since last week. So as it says there, no change. The dollar is back to slumping. I see no good outlook for at least the remainder of this year. No change to that either. The Aussie is at an extreme point, so look for the breakout or the bounce. It is imminent, and as I added from last week's message, it is starting to look like it's a breakout across multiple pairs. So if we get those breakouts confirmed, again, there's going to be massive opportunity there. The yen is still weak, though it is finding resistance, especially against the dollar. So we're seeing the yen starting to resist a little bit against further weakness. Against the dollar is really not a fair comparison because the dollar is weakening very rapidly. At the same time, some of the other yen pairs are very overextended, and we haven't seen any sort of yen strength, even though there's no reason for it to continue being weak. So be very cautious with these yen pairs. I think they have the potential to turn around very, very swiftly and with little warning. And last but not least, the Canadian pairs. The Canadian dollar is benefiting from the oil move, but it is still sluggish and it's still weakening against some of the currencies. So no change to that. Just be prepared. Be ready for the wind to go into the Canadian sail. And we may be seeing a gold rush on the Canadian pairs at some point. But again, we're going to wait for that to actually kick off before we do any significant trading in that direction. That's it. conclusion, always review and adjust. And that's something I take very much to heart as I get to the end of our fiscal year. My fiscal year runs from from April 1st to the end of March. So we've got a little bit over a month. We've got one account that is extremely positive right now, and we've got two accounts that didn't do as well last year. Again, it's all about diversification, not putting all your eggs in the same basket. And as I mentioned many a time, I'm not afraid of taking temporary losses. If you're not willing to take the losses, you're not going to be there to take the profit. So this is business as usual, but I always do take the opportunity at the end of the fiscal year to do a full review over trading, our approach, our results, the challenges we faced, and any errors that were made. And we all make errors. Every trader needs to do this if they want to be a professional, or at least to earn like one. So have you guys been keeping records? I hope you have. We always keep records, and they're all publicly available, along with our methodology week by week. I record these sessions. I put them up publicly on YouTube. I email them out. That makes it very simple for me and for anyone else to go back and see what I've been doing. There's no way for me to bullshit anyone because I'm always out there in public, on the record. There will always be things to correct and adjust. That's normal for everyone. There is no ultimate method that's going to always work. So the next few weeks, we'll highlight how we do this. I'll be sharing all that we do in that regard. And of course, as always, questions are very welcome and in fact encouraged. That is going to be it for me this session. Do I have any comments or questions from anyone? Okay, folks, then that is a wrap. I'll be sending out and publishing a recording of this session very shortly, and I will see you guys, those of you who subscribe, I will see you guys in our next meeting tomorrow. Have a great rest of a weekend, and be careful out there.